You're listening to the Forever Pick Podcast with Bobby Paul. 1696. Let's go. Light 'em up!
I love the intro by Jason Maxwell. You guys can catch him a lot this summer, and he's in the kind of part of his career where he's might be doing a bar gig one night and then opening up for Alabama the next night. So I'm not sure they're touring anymore, but that's where Jason's at. So if you want to catch Jason within 100 feet in concert, catch him now, or this summer and next summer you're going to be seeing him a lot from the back row with the binoculars. Thank you, Jason. He's got 2 albums out. All of his stuff is on YouTube. Jason Maxwell is Jayson. And Maxwell is in the Polish with grilled onions. That's a Chicago thing. I loved the real Maxwell Street back in the day, but that's where music was. That's where I learned about music. That's where I saw these dudes playing in the street when their drummer had a bass drum with duct tape and a snare and a hi-hat and one tom maybe, broken, put together different piece drum sets. What was that, like 1974, 75, 76? Today we conclude the Adventures of Nathan Daniel, a Danelectro story with 2 experts. Now, the most important thing that we remember is that part 1 and part 2 were from the son of the horse's mouth. So we're going to take that as historical truth. When Doug and I and Brad talk, we are speculating on information that we have. Sometimes we have half the story, sometimes we have the whole story, but let this episode spark your imagination or make you think clearer, or make you come up with a new possibility that I'd love to have you share. We have a 24-hour phone number you can call. It's in the show notes. But let us conclude this story with 2 experts helping us tie up any loose ends in the story. Oh, most importantly, speaking of Howard Daniel, if you go to penforrent.com, just click on the show notes below. Don't go to it. It's just, there's a link below. Howard posted a beautiful table, him and his father, at the Dano factory in an elliptical. And it is gorgeous. It's a project you can build. He gives all the information really that you need to be able to get this gorgeous coffee table. Ironically, it's an elliptical in the same shape as the Danelectro logo. I have asked him. I did not yet get the answer as of this moment when I record. Did your dad come up with the logo that had the elliptical in it? He must have, obviously, but this table is this long, gorgeous elliptical. If you know the Danelectro surfboard-looking logo, that's the coffee table. And then he took the ends of the cutoffs and turn it into legs. So the legs have that elliptical shape in them through the center. It's gorgeous. And if you're a woodworker, you got to build this table, especially if you're a Dano fan. I love it. I said to him, dude, you could market that. Like, I would literally open a shop just to license making that table and selling it to Dano fans, because it is every bit as cool as any guitar he ever built. So here it is. Let's listen. First up is Doug, and then we're going to close it out with Brad. There was a time they went to the NAMM show, and that's when he started shielding guitars with the TS shielding. He brought a neon light. He had 2 guitars there. His guitar, the Danelectro, and then a Brand X. Do you know anything about the Brand X guitar that he used to demonstrate what it's like to be near a neon sign without shielding?
No.
Okay, I know that you have every model plus models that were never even put out to the public. Am I right?
Yeah, prototypes, employee guitars, stuff like that.
What do you think the key changes at MCA were that brought the end to Danelectro in '69?
They tried to do high-end stuff. They tried to do dealer distributors instead of direct. They're a parent company. Whatever they're carrying around, they can cut them right out. And in that case, that's what they did with Danelectro.
Wow. And the last day, Nat walks out with 2 guitars, no amps, and goes home to his family. Wow.
He didn't retire, kept going.
Yeah. That he really kicked it up.
Yeah.
How many guitars, Danelectro guitars, at the height of your personal collection, would you say you had?
I think it topped out like 144 guitars and 65 amps, give or take.
And how many models do you think that Dano put out officially?
Ooh, I should be able to tell you that, but if you peek into the book, they're all there.
They're all there, right?
Between Silvertone, Danelectro, Coral, they made a lot of guitars, but you don't see them. I don't know where they all are. I mean, I used to have to dig deep. Once I collected all the typical ones you see, and then started either finding something that was cleaner than the one I had, or different in some way, and then pretty much you started, I got to have that prototype I saw for sale. An employee built one that no one's ever seen. Yeah, it was crazy. I had a lot of fun grabbing those and to do the value guide when I did Neptune Bound. But this time around, I'm going to leave the values out. And
cool.
Yeah, I wanted to dictate that at that point in time, but
most of the guys that we talked about that played these guitars as adults professionally played these guitars as children, and I would guess that's why they're buying them from you.
Well, I decided to do that because, look, it was a journey for me, putting my collection together, and, they come in different colors. You could find unique things, and they're light, and they play. They got a nice radius on the fretboard, nice fret wire, and that's all. And they got great pickups. And besides the book, I'm actually I'm hand making lipstick replica pickups. They're called Neptunes, and been doing that for about a year now. If you want a modern replica that's handmade using Alnico 6 magnets, like they used and nobody else is using, that's for you.
Where can we get those?
www.danelectro.guru.
Nice.
So my thing is just making them the way they used to, unlike anybody else. That's it.
For the people that need to see the Neptune Bound book, where do they go to get it?
The current edition is sold out. I do have some signed hardcovers.
It is the Bible of Danelectro, and that's why we needed to speak to you, because we're trying to accumulate as much of the truth of the story behind the man.
Well, here's one myth you can dispel.
Cool.
Is that Nat picked up the lipstick tube covers from some Revlon manufacturer, but Nat hired a company in Connecticut to make those to his specs. So, and admittedly, this myth found its way into the first edition of Neptune Bound, but it won't be in the second edition because it's not true. It's probably the biggest myth that has been repeated so many times, and it's a fun idea for sure.
Yeah,
I understand why it's
urban legend, man.
I repeated it in the book, so there you go. But it won't be in the book this time because it's not true. So that's a little thing anyway.
That's cool. And if I want to get a signed copy of the book that you've got,
Danelectro.guru, www.danelectro.guru. Or you could just go to the Danelectro fan book page on Facebook. So anybody can reach me at either one of those places. And you can reserve a copy of the new book. You can get a copy of the old book. I even have copies of the first book from 1995.
The co-written book?
That was the guitars from Neptune, yeah.
Yeah.
So anybody who wants to talk Danos, and actually, I'm looking for anybody out there that has anything really wild, prototype, employee guitar, something very unique, collection. Get in touch with me on Facebook, Danelectro Fan Club, or Danelectro.guru, and we'll maybe get you in the book.
That's cool. How old were you when you got your first Dano?
Oh boy, it was. I know where I got it. I know what I paid for it. 20, 19, late 70s.
Late 70s.
Yeah, it was a local barber shop that sold guitars and did
cool
guitar luthier work and stuff.
Outside of Boston?
Yeah, it was a tiny little shack, like right on the main drag. It was like a couple of phone booths inside, and there's guitars everywhere, hanging on the ceiling everywhere, and it was like an old-style barber shop. Yeah, so I found a black U1 or U2, I don't even remember. I don't have it anymore, but had somebody carved some girl's name in the front.
Wow.
I picked it up, and it just was like, it was loud acoustically, and, and the neck was great.
What was the girl's name?
I'm pretty sure it was Debbie.
Cool. Oh, I never met a Debbie I didn't like.
Boy, there might be a picture of that guitar somewhere in my archives, but I couldn't ever put my hands on it.
Well, you got a really, really cool story there and a really great hobby, man. And I want to thank you so much for adding to the story of Nathan Daniel.
Yeah, I hope I added a little bit.
My name's Lou Carlos. I'm a studio producer based in Chicago, and I'm a former music critic with the Chicago Tribune. Now, many people say that it's the effects pedal or the guitar that makes a huge difference, but I want to point out something before I go into this demo. Picks make a huge difference. Let's just say you have an ordinary pick and you play all the way by the bridge. Most guitar players know that that's going to have a different sound than if you play by the pickup or play up by the neck. However, the pick is often one of the most underrated aspects of playing. So what I'm going to do is take you through this Forever pick and let's test drive it. Let's see what it can do. Okay, are we kicked on? I can tell you right now from playing this pick, it does a better job of reproducing an old Fender sound and feel in terms of the amplifier than some of the boutique amplifiers that claim to remarkably. You can't see the amp on camera. This is a Marshall. It is not a Fender. This is part of what the pick is doing in terms of the articulation. This is wonderful. This pick has made a believer out of me. I hope it makes a believer out of you. I'm Lou Carloso, Chicago-based record producer. I love it. The Forever pick. May it live forever.
This is Fatfoot Effects, and you are listening to the Forever Pick Podcast.
I had the opportunity to sit down with Brad the Guitologist from YouTube fame. He is one of the heavy hitters in the guitar niche. Brad is a really smart guy to the point where he picks up on the tiniest little things, and he came up with a theory this week about Gibson, and everything that he is saying is dead on. And everything that he is saying is, like I said, he's really good at picking up on small hints. And he has this picture, and he's just like at a crossroad, at a Y, at the fork in the road, and he's just stuck there, and I have the information that will send him down the right fork. So this week, probably in a few days, I'm going to release a real short episode that's going to give an unauthorized gospel truth about what's going on at Gibson Guitars and what you can look forward to. No speculation. In light of that, if you have a broken amp, you need a vintage, that is, amp. Anybody could fix a regular amp. Almost nobody could fix an old 1962 Silvertone. Brad can do it. So let's take a deep dive into Brad's mind and enjoy the ride. You've been rebuilding these Danelectro amps now. Here's the first thing I need to know is what is a push-pull circuit? Pull circuit, sorry, my Chicago accent.
A push-pull amplifier basically consists of two output tubes, and what they do is one tube is pushing one direction, and the other tube is pushing the other direction. And what I mean by direction is when you have an AC signal, if you picture a wave in your mind, like a waveform that goes up and down like that, one tube pulls one direction, and the other tube pulls back the other direction. So each tube is only operating at half of the cycle. So what that does is it is more efficient. It's a way of making those two tubes in tandem equal more power than just one of them ever could, doing the entire cycle. So that's the difference between a push-pull amp and a single-ended amp. A single-ended amp is just one tube that's amplifying the entire cycle the entire time.
And Nathan Daniel or Nathan Daniel's team invented this.
Well, this I don't know. I do know this. I do know for a fact that Nathan Daniel was very early into guitar technology. I don't know for a fact. I mean, I've never found a patent, but like his son said, he never really patented anything, so I don't know. And I was surprised to read that Nat Daniel might have gotten there first. He is a very interesting figure in guitar history. Extremely interesting guy, and the way he builds all the stuff coming out of his factory, if you just pick it apart and you actually look at the materials that he was using and the methods with which everything was put together, if you actually look at it, some examples I can think of are the tuning keys on some of those 1960s guitars. If you look at them, all it is a piece of trim. It's like a piece of aluminum trim from like an Airstream factory or something. You know, the Airstream, like the trailers? Yeah. It's like a piece of trim or something from one of those maybe, or like from a pre-manufactured house, or like I don't know, maybe like an automobile factory or something.
Now that you mention it, yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm really curious to know. I wanted to travel to New Jersey to try to figure some of this stuff out and piece together what factories were close to his factories. What are the pieces you don't use or you can't use? And I think, honestly, if he's anything like I think he must have been, this is probably what he did. He probably went nearby to try to save shipping, for one, because, anytime you ship something in, it's going to cost you to ship it to you. So it's better to let some other poor schmuck, ship it to the factory next door. There's so much stuff being made in New Jersey and in that vicinity at this time. America was booming, like in the 50s and the early 60s. There were factories everywhere. I mean, the Midwest was covered in them, and the East Coast, especially New Jersey, it seems like, was covered in factories. I would not be a bit surprised if that's exactly what he was doing. He was using pieces from nearby factories and just repurposing them.
Nate was from what they call the greatest generation. Me and you are Generation Xers, probably. That's what I am.
Yeah.
And they were the guys that understood the value of 5 cents. And those were also the guys who overachieved and did exactly what you just said and started those factories and started that industry. That this story has taught me is that what he did is he knew that Sears had this price point and he had a profit to make. And what he did is he made the best possible guitar you could make on the budget that he had, but went much farther because of the ingenuity you just explained to build that guitar. My point being that the major manufacturers today do exactly the opposite to build you that guitar for that price point, whatever that you're getting the crappiest thing possible for the $79 that starter guitar costs you today, opposed to the mentality of the greatest generation that ever lived, who said, how can I make this the greatest product at this price point? And my fear is that the generations behind you and I never had a chance to understand that that's the way it was.
Nat Daniel, he was up against Fender and Gibson, and he was up against the big boys, Epiphone and whoever else was around. But yeah, it's like you said, he was definitely building to a price point. And like I said, I think he was using things that were genius as far as I'm concerned. His selection of materials, his use of things like masonite board, is revolutionary as far as guitars. I mean, who would look at a piece of masonite and say, that's tone wood, Yeah. But the thing is, he made it tone wood because what he did with that stuff is he created like hollow body guitars out of it. And it works, for what it is. It really works. And I've had some of those guitars that, I put strings on them, and they play like butter, Yeah, Nat Daniel, he's just one of those guys that just amazes me. Every time I look at one of his guitars or amps, if you look at the amps, they're made out of, I call it, in all my videos, I call it glorified cardboard because I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's like a particle board,
Uh-huh.
I mean, the whole cabinet is made of this stuff, and you would think probably some parent would scoff at it back in the 60s and say, oh, that'll never last. But they do last. I've had them from the 1950s where, it looks like they probably lived in a basement and were even damp, and still survived. And I don't know how, but they have. It's amazing what he was able to do with very little. Because, I mean, to be honest, $35 was still a lot of money back then. Because if you do the calculation, the inflation calculator, it's you would spend more on a Danelectro at that time than you would spend on a Chinese guitar now. So the prices, according to inflation, they've gone down over time, and that's what's kind of put all this pressure on the guitar market anyway. I think that's why good builders like Hamer couldn't. It seems like couldn't stay in it. I don't know the whole story of that, but
that's it. It's the quality was too high. The price was, there wasn't enough doctors and lawyers to buy them. That's what it came down to. But I do think Frank Untermeyer is the only guy who could turn around the Gibson Corporation. But because I know you're a repair guy. You're not a retired repair guy that does YouTube. You're still a repair guy, right?
Well, it's interesting because I didn't start out as a repair guy. What my channel started out as is I'm a buy, sell, and trade guy who happened to repair my own stuff. And when I would do videos of some of my stuff, I would get these emails about, hey, can I send you something? I saw where you had this and you fixed it or whatever, and can I send you one of mine? And it's like, okay, yeah, where are you? I'm in California. I guess so, if you want to mail it to me and pay shipping both ways. So I started kind of just dipping my toe in. It's like, I guess.
You became a brand.
And it's just sort of snowballed, man, I guess. And it's over the last year and a half or so, it's just sort of snowballed. I guess people have sort of, been looking for mods to their particular amp, or they've been looking for a fix for their amp that has a really common problem, for that particular model or something. And I've made a video about it or whatever, and they contact me, and it's like, hey, nobody around here really fixes this stuff. Can I send it to you? It's like, it's hard to turn down because, it's something I know how to do, and it's money, and I've got to feed my family somehow anyway, so sure, I guess they'll send it to me,
I'm just sticking my head out of the hole for the first time, and that's how I found you. It's like, so when I stuck my head out, that's when I found you, and I found a lot of other helpful sources and said, wow, there's so much more. I started to actually realize things, too, that, like, for instance, Nat Daniel inventing reverb, and then there's Les Paul inventing reverb, and, all these stories about who's inventing reverb. As a luthier, I know that I don't think anybody's wrong, but they all invented a reverb a different way through a different source, and nobody did it the same way. One guy did it with 10 guitar strings over a pickup. The other guy did it with a vault. Everybody had a different way to create it. So how can we say who's wrong? And if people want to dig deeper into your library that you've got on YouTube, where do they go?
Yeah, you can just go to YouTube and type in The Guitologist, pretty much spelled exactly like it sounds, Guit, ologist, as if I'm studying guitars. And that's the misnomer. I think a lot of people read that and they think, oh, he's some pretentious asshole who thinks he knows it all or something because he's got guitar. Well, no, it means I'm studying it,
Thank you so much. It was really, really cool to talk to you today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you too.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Joining us, the mysterious from Fatfoot Effects. Here's this week's question. You're going on tour for a year. The road manager is a penny pincher. He explains to you that you could bring one amp, one guitar, and 3 effects. What do you bring?
Well, unfortunately, there is no band at the moment. Life is just too busy with building pedals, the family, kids, and everything else that seems to get in between that stuff. So, like a traditional blues rock kind of thing, because that's what I crank in my car, so that's what I'd play.
How about guitars, amps, and pedals?
That's easy. Telecaster.
It's funny you say Telecaster, because the first time I heard the Thalium, my first thought was, I want to hear that with a Telecaster. And your choice of amplification on this fictitious tour?
Amp, that's easy too. Any Fender amp will do. Pedals would probably be a Wampler Eagle compressor, a Southampton Actinio, and probably some sort of overdrive that would be either a J-Rock Blue Note or the Way Huge pork loin.
Thank you. And you could visit Fatfoot Effects at fatfooteffects.com. Definitely check out the flagship Thallium. That's how I found it. Actually, I watch a lot of review videos, and I love my DS1 with my SD1, which is it's on my board right now. And for a super minimal price, you can send your pedal in for a mod that from Fatfoot Effects does that will make that DS1 growl. So check out Fatfoot Effects at fatfooteffects.com. The one point, really the only point I ever would want to make about music, about gear, about guitars, about amps, everything between the guitar pick to the ear. We all want everything to fit in the categories. A good example, the very talented Brian Wampler and the very intelligent Philip McKnight. Now, I tease them both, but I like them both, and I respect them both, and they both have a lot of knowledge. One being a pedal builder, one being a guitar and possibly pedal repairman, and that job comes with a lot of knowledge that me as a luthier wouldn't have. If you could see the point of view of the difference in what Philip would learn in his career, what I would learn in my career, and what he wouldn't learn and what I wouldn't learn. Same goes for Wampler. He's outside the circle. He's doing the pedals, but same concept. Everything in Brian Wampler's world, in my understanding, doesn't have a lot of variables in it. Electronics are electronics. You apply this piece at this amplitude to this product, and you're going to get this. And it's simple math. There's a lot of math to cover. That happens a little less in Philip McKnight's world, and that happens 100% of the time in my world. But there is a variable, because now, as an example about variables, you have two guys that are very smart, very good in their fields, with different backgrounds, with different opinions on the same thing. In this particular case, these guys disagreed on surface-mounted or circuit-mounted potentiometers. They're both correct. Neither guy is wrong. There, again, are so many... In Brian Wampler's world, he chose a certain quality part, used it, never had a problem with it. Philip McKnight fellow sees these damn things all the time, and the only reason he sees them usually is because he's fixing them, replacing them, or repairing them. So nobody's right, nobody's wrong. We can't fit as much as we would like to, and as much as it probably drives the industry. Nothing fits into any category. You cannot imagine that two pedals on my board are going to sound the same as two pedals on somebody else's board. Even if you have the same guitar and the same amp, you're still going to get a different sound. I'll tell you, I have the complete set of Danelectro Food Series, some people call them minis, of their overdrive pedals. I compared 4, 2 or 3 at a time, never all 4 at the same time. So I wanted to pick the best one. So I played 2, keep the best one. Another 2 came in. I tested all 3 of them, kept the best one. The one that sounded best to my ear. And that's the final variable. So not to preach, but the end user, anytime that you decide that you know something indefinitely, you're wrong in guitar. It goes with guitar tone. For the same thing, if you take one of my maple guitar picks and play it on 5 different guitars, it's going to sound 5 different ways because each guitar has different wood. It's reacting different to the maple. Same thing goes with a resistor. Same thing goes with the potentiometer. No potentiometers are alike. When you start to get to the $25 potentiometers, which are the only ones I would ever use anyways to start with, I would never use a $2.50 potentiometer in a product that I would make. So the long and short of it is that every time you put your thumb on something in chasing tone, in what does that wood sound like, you're always going to trip. Every case scenario has to be taken at face value of what you actually have in your hand. We cannot say that an alder guitar with this pickup is going to sound this way, because two exact will not sound exact. They will sound different. Some people will have preferences. Some people might not care. But it's every single, if you go to a Taylor guitar company and you pick up 5 identical Taylor guitars, they're all going to have something very different about the next one. It's all about variables. And when you accept the variable instead of the final result, you could always chase the next answer, the next question, but there is no final answer on any of this.
Honey, have you seen my scissors?
I borrowed them to fix the guitar here.
Oh, well, I can't find the needle I was using either. Honey, you must have dropped that needle in the guitar.
Uh-oh.
Now you'll have to take it all apart.
Can you imagine looking for a needle in a guitar stack? So long, folks.
And some upcoming guitar shows. Lake County Musicians Swap Meet is June 10th at Redheaded's Florida Twin Markets in Mount Dora, Florida. The Gear and Guitar Musicians Swap Meet, June 23rd at the Coos Rehearsal Studios in San Pedro, California. June 24th, the Summer Ohio Guitar Show at the McCoy Center in Hillard, Ohio. June 28th, Summer NAMM, Nashville, Tennessee. June 30th, Colorado Guitar Show and Custom Luthier Expo is June 30th at the Lutheran High School. I guess there's just one. No, that's in Parker, Colorado.